Hello. Hi, I'm Heather, and this is knitting update number 24 for Saturday, February 7th, 2026. I'm happy to report it is sunny today, but it is freezing cold, like minus 20-ish degrees Celsius. So yeah, not super fun. It's supposed to be like that all weekend, and we did get more snow overnight. All right, I didn't post a video yesterday. I had chemo, and then I also had an endocrinologist phone visit, or video visit. So I was like a little bit stressed, and I was out for longer because these two appointments kind of overlapped. They're supposed to overlap, but as usual, my endo was about an hour late, so they didn't end up overlapping, which is good. But because I had to do the video, we just stayed at the hospital after chemo and then went for lunch. So I didn't get home till late, and I also didn't get any knitting progress done really. I guess I haven't really been as much in the knitting mood right now. Like, I think when I started doing the videos, I was like knitting nonstop. But the last couple of days or the last week or so, I feel like I'm still knitting every day, but it's not at that same frantic pace. And I think the fact that I started sewing again and working on quilt stuff, and I feel really inspired by that, I almost just am not as motivated to work on the knitting, because I think quilting is actually my favorite of my hobbies. So I was really sad when I couldn't really do it anymore. And I think just making these progress bags has been such a good entry point back into sewing and quilting. I think because they're smaller, more bite-sized projects, so I still get that satisfaction. Let me talk quickly about my work, what progress I have made on my knitting. So I worked yesterday for a little bit on the Zigazag Ah socks. So I think I'm doing it right, but I feel like it's a little wonky looking. But yeah, you can sort of start seeing the zigzags. I think as I go along, it'll get more obvious. Maybe this side's a bit more wrinkled. I don't know if I made a mistake somewhere. Also, I don't like how this has kind of a wonky look. So at one point I was going to rip it back and start over, but I think actually that's just how it looks. So I'm just going to carry on with them. And I hope maybe when I block them. Also, I was working on this yesterday after the Benadryl, and I kind of thought it would be a bad idea because I have to read every row. But once you just read the instructions, it's not hard. It's very simple, short repeat. I think it's like an 8-stitch repeat or something. So it's not complicated for my Benadryl brain, but I still felt like I was kind of struggling through it. And I didn't work on it that much. I think I maybe worked on it more in the car because the drive down was actually horrible. It was really snowing. It wasn't snowing that bad, but the traffic was really bad. And I don't know if it's because of the weather, because we've had worse weather and better traffic, or if it's just because it was Friday. Maybe there was an accident. I don't know. Maybe we were stuck behind snow plows on the highway, which that can really slow things down. So I think I knit more in the car than anything else. But yeah, I hope I'm not making a mistake on these. And as I get a little bit further along, I think it'll look a bit better, but we'll see. If I have to frog it and start it over, I'm okay with that. Sorry. I'm bringing my next work in progress to show you, and that is the White Mountain sweater, of course. I'm motivated to finish this now, and I'll tell you why, because I have like plans for my next project. So now I really want to get this done, but I have made progress just on the ribbing. Oh. Sorry. Yeah, so I want to get 4.5 inches, and as of right now, I'm at 2 inches of ribbing. Actually, I think I just have to do about 2 more inches or 2 1/4, and then start doing the bind off, because the bind off is feels like it's quite long on this one. So yeah, I guess I can give a yarn update. This is how much I have left of the body ball. So I don't think it'll be enough to finish the ribbing, but I'm totally fine with having to have enough. And if you're new here, if this is the first video you watched, I'm knitting this White Mountains in Briggs Little light brown regal, which is their worsted weight. 100% wool, and the mohair is Handmaiden kid mohair, and it is in the colorway Tri Latte, and it is 70% kid mohair and 30% silk, and came in 1,000-meter skein. But I did frog a sweater to get the yarn, the Briggs Little. It used to be a Gib Raglan by Andrea Mowry, but I never really wore it because I didn't really like it. It's a nice sweater. It didn't fit me right. So yeah, so I'm giving a yarn update because I only have this limited quantity, and I felt like the Gib was much smaller than the White Mountains, but the White Mountains is a very low yardage sweater project. I'm knitting the large also, and I did modify. I'm doing a 2x2 ribbing for all the ribbing because I was inspired by a toast sweater that I kind of wanted to recreate. Not exactly, but just like the general look of it. Okay, and now on to my little story time about my next knitting project because, okay, so this morning or last night I was looking at Ravelry and I saw that there was a new pattern released by this French designer. I'm not quite sure of her name, so I'll just put it on the screen because it's French, and even though I took 10 to 12 years of French in school, my pronunciation is terrible, and also I don't know how to pronounce this designer's name. The sweater though is called Kacey, and it was just released maybe a couple days ago. I've just seen it, so it's new to me, but I'm pretty sure it's released in February, like this month. And it's a cable knit sweater, and it is knit up in worsted weight and held with a strand of mohair. I have been working on this project. It's the Nid Dickey Vest by Rui Yamamuro, I want to say. Again, I'll put the name and everything on the screen here. So let me show you. Okay, so I have been working on this Nid Dickey Vest since, I think I actually started it before I started my Rhinebeck sweater last year. So I probably started in September. Last summer I was really unwell. I literally almost died, and I don't mean that's not being hyperbolic. That is for real. My chemo had stopped working, and I have cancer in my lungs now, as metastatic breast cancer, and the cancer just like took over, and I wasn't able to breathe. I was on oxygen. I was in a wheelchair. I was not even able to get up off the couch and like walk more than, say, like 10 meters without taking a break. So things were really bad for months. I started getting better. I literally wasn't able to do anything except for watch TV. At one point for a while, I wasn't even able to carry on a conversation. Like, that's how short of breath and how weak I was. I couldn't even talk. Anyways, thankfully my oncologist acted fairly quickly and changed chemo like 3 or 4 times over this like short window. We did find something that now seems to be working because I'm actually, for the most part, doing better than I have since I've gotten this stage 4 diagnosis. So I wasn't able to knit, I wasn't able to do anything, and then when I started getting better, I started feeling bored actually, which that was like kind of the best feeling ever, and asked my husband to help me get my yarn out. But I had this yarn that I really wanted to use, and that is the Shibui Knits Drift. And this is, so anyone who has been knitting will know, and I've talked about this before because I've bought that other Shibui at this yarn store. So Shibui Knits is they no longer make yarn, although you can get some of their yarn through Malintosh, like a collab. I don't know that much about it, but I think it's just it's a very limited amount. I think it's really just the mohair. But anyways, this is 85% extra fine merino and 15% cashmere. It's so soft. So I kind of splurged and bought, I think, 8 skeins of this yarn because this is one of my favorite colors. And this was like 10 years ago. I got an email that a yarn store I used to frequent all the time when I lived in Toronto, the Purple Pearl on Queen Street East. They were closing, unfortunately, and they're having a sale, so I bought, I think, 8 skeins of this, and I felt like that was a splurge. I didn't have any project in mind. I thought it would be a sweater's quantity, and so I got the yarn, but they are smaller skeins. They're 101 meters per skein, And so 8 of them, I think I could have found or made it work, but it just didn't seem like enough. And so when I was coming out of off my deathbed, I really wanted to use up a yarn that was so precious and had been hanging out my stash for a while. Like, I was being really precious about this too, because I had started projects with it and I ended up frogging them because they weren't good enough for the yarn. But then I found this designer new to me, Rui Yamamoto. I hope I'm saying her name right, but like I said, I'll put it on the screen. I felt the Nid Dickey Vest was kind of the best option for with this yarn because I would for sure have enough yarn to knit it. And I really wanted to try texture knitting, and I love that it had this honeycomb pattern. It also had a different cable, but I started knitting it with this, and compared to the honeycomb, it just looked so sloppy, so I ended up ripping that back. I think it's because I actually started knitting this. You're supposed to use a 5mm needle, but I couldn't find mine, so I just used a 5.5, but I do think it probably would look better, and that other cable would look better on a smaller needle. It would look a lot neater, but I think it was just a loose gauge that was kind of making it look messy. And then there's also these cables on the side. So this project, I put this aside, and then I knit my Rhinebeck sweater, which was also a pattern by the same designer, her Rillen sweater. I love that sweater. I'll show it eventually. I can maybe put a picture here. I don't have many pictures of me wearing it. I was really pleased with how that sweater turned out. And then when I returned back to working on this project, I kind of had the bright idea of trying to turn it into a sweater, because I kind of felt like the Nid Dickey Vest, like, yeah, I'll wear it, but I think a sweater is a better choice for this yarn. So I looked on Ravelry, and I did find someone selling their stash of the yarn. That's where I got this one from, actually. They're selling 9 skeins of it. I probably didn't need 9 to make this into a sweater, but I didn't want to be that person who's like, can you divide this up for me, whatever. So I just bought the whole amount, and I thought I can make this into a sweater and then probably make a vest or something out of the rest of the yarn. That was back in October when I picked this back up again. And so I added some length. I added these moss stitch panels on the side, and then I started doing the ribbing. And then I came to a standstill because I didn't know what to do. I feel like these armholes are so big, so I regretted that, but I think it's because I had knit it for the Dickey and then changed my mind about doing it as a sweater. And I didn't want to rip it back because I find like trying to figure out where you're at with these honeycomb cables is kind of tricky. So I thought I'll just keep going, and maybe I'll pick up stitches and kind of knit back and forth until the armhole is smaller, and then I'll add a sleeve. Then I just got so intimidated and overwhelmed, and I couldn't figure out how I wanted to do this anymore. And then the funny thing is, the designer actually did release a sweater version of this pattern, but it's in DK weight, or it's like a strand of fingering held with the mohair. And I've considered buying the pattern just so I can kind of see, and I wouldn't follow it exactly, but just use it as a guide to finish this as a sweater. But because this French designer released this cable knit sweater that I'm actually so in love with, now I think I've come to the decision that I'm gonna make the Kacey cable knit sweater, and I'm going to leave this for now, but if I have enough yarn, which I expect I will, then I'm gonna rip this back and turn it into the Dickey vest that it was destined to be. I kind of want it to be long enough that I could wear it as a vest. Even if it's a little bit cropped, I think it'd be super cute. Like, most of my pants are high-waisted, and I have wanted to make a vest as well. So I think this could actually be a really good addition to my wardrobe as the Nid Dickey vest, but I don't want to finish it until I know for sure I have enough yarn for the other sweater. So I will hold off on finishing that. I'll knit the Kacey cable sweater. I think I'm going to actually do it next after I'm done the White Mountains. We'll see what happens. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.